can I touch on, before I move away from
Yeah.
Kenya, the senator story, obviously,
Yeah.
Charles, everyone's been obsessing about this story
Yeah.
for more than 24 months. It's been a big story, big part of your revenue 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Listening to you this morning, it sounded to me like you were shrugging it off, that there had been some emotional investment as an organization in this, and an effort to sort of fix it, but really now irrelevant to the shareholder, and Charles at EABL is looking at other things.
Yeah, was that the impact? Really?
That was how
So,
it felt. It felt
okay.
like it felt you made a genuine effort, but you were now quite sort of,
Yeah, okay, so let me kind of go through those things. I think that Senator was created for the best possible reasons.
Yes.
And it was created because Kenyans were drinking illicit alcohol. They were exposing themselves to profound health risks, and it was having a huge consequence of the health of the Kenyan nation. And Senator was created out of the wisdom of saying, if a respected business like EABL could create something of low cost, just above the alternative in illicit, then potentially people could be persuaded to trade out of illicits and into the formal sector, and that would be a good thing. It would be a good thing for the consumers. It would also be a good thing for the retail sector, because they would be able to come out of the illicit informal sector.
It was actually transformative.
It was transformative across the stakeholder group. So I'd start with consumers. Good for consumers, right? Because alternative, they're drinking in drinking dens, straws out of a shared bucket of who knows what, right? So good for consumers, good for retailers, because they were able to develop a retail environment, which, quite basic.
At the peak, you had 12,000 retailers.
Yeah, so we developed a network of 12,000 retailers who were offering these consumers who would have been in drinking dens otherwise an alternative environment to drink a safe alcohol. And then obviously distributors were serving those retailers. We were serving the distributors, serving the retailers, serving the consumers, and we were buying lots of local raw material to convert into Senator. And the other part of the equation was the Kenyan government, through the Treasury, was getting VAT on the sales of Senator. It was getting corporation tax from EABL. It was getting income tax from the retailers and the people that they had employed, and the distributors. And I think that you go back 10 or 11 years to when Senator was created. Incredibly progressive move, I thought, for Kenya. Incredibly progressive move. Now, when that equation was then thrown out of balance by excise tax coming on, which created...
What was the amount of excise tax?
The intent was to create extra revenue from those consumers of 6.2 billion shillings a year. And that meant that the retail price of Senator went from between a range of 21 to 25 to between 40 and 45.
Right.
And
nearly doubled.
Yeah. And obviously it was too much for consumers to want to bear, and they moved away from Senator very rapidly. Since the kind of early days of the excise tax, we've taken it on ourselves to reduce the price.
So you've been doing volume, but at very low margin.
Yeah, so the retail price is now 30 shillings for a mug. So up from 25. And you might say, well, 5 shillings, it's not very much. But
it made all the difference.
But it makes such a lot of difference for those consumers. So they've gone back to drinking illicit alcohol.
It was 5 shillings that made the marginal difference.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, so with all of that, I think 10 years of hard work have been unwound. From a retailer perspective, from consumer perspective, they've gone back to drinking illicit.
What about the farmers?
The farmers, I was reading a report this morning about farmers saying that they've got no demand for their sorghum and for their crops, and they don't know what they're going to do. There's a huge kind of outcry in the farming community. And I think given all of that from a social perspective, put to one side the financial impact. From a social perspective, I would love to see the decision to tax Senator be reviewed.
Yes.
Now, obviously, I'm not a decision maker in that, but my position would be, from a social perspective, it's had far more negative consequences than it's had positive ones. If I then bring financial into it, from a financial perspective, the move was intended to increase revenue for Treasury. I think it's destroyed revenue for Treasury. They are collecting some excise tax, but they've lost VAT, they've lost corporation tax, they've lost income tax from across the value chain, and of course the farmers aren't producing anything now, so they're not paying any tax. So I think from a system perspective, it's destroyed value. If I then come to EABL and EABL shareholders, before Senator was taxed, and I've actually got a sheet for it, a couple down. Senator used to contribute 16% of total EABL revenue. Wow. The contribution level after we'd taken off production costs was, I can't quite remember the number, but it was below 10.
Yes.
From so 16% revenue, below 10 kind of marginal contribution. Where are we now? 4% revenue contribution, less than 1% contribution. So my kind of message to the shareholders this morning was, you don't have to worry about Senator anymore, because it's so small now for us. It's not going to meaningfully affect our performance going forward. So that was the intent of the messaging.